Hello! Let me take you on a strange journey. A journey into cosmic darkness. Chapter 1. Balzoon. Stardate 2345.12. Won't somebody please think of the children? His entire world rocked. Franklin's eyes flew open. Explosions. Gunfire. McEnroe? We will not, we cannot do what you request, Castellana. She slammed her fist down again, and Frank had to stop the conference table from tipping. Mother Earth's pride and joy, the Earth Core shuttlecock, was 33 decks and 8 cruise ships large, but by the time her builders got to conference room 3, all the better materials had been used up, and their patients certainly had. As a result, the tables looked more like TV props than furniture, and Franklin J. Cornelius had nightly terrors of the polystyrene walls caving in around them. Mac ignored the captain's scrabble, just as she had ignored his snoring seconds before, and continued to screech at the wall-wide monitor. You seem to think, Castellana, that because we're on a peaceful mission, that we won't fight back, and we will instead roll over in a simpering mess and give in to these woeful demands. Well, I'll have you know, you underestimate the might of the EC shuttlecock entirely. Stretched 30 feet across the wall-mounted monitor, Castellana was big enough to eat each of the bridge crew in one gulp and still have room for the furniture. She ran her tongue along a row of razor-sharp teeth as they were considering it. To Frank's right, Dr. Nash shirked under the table, and beyond him, Comms Officer Misha did the same. Only Mac was brave enough to face the pirate head-on. She even stood up so she could attract more of Castellana's wrath, waving her arms and pointing. Frank winced. Every gesticulation brought with it the very real possibility that she would smack the monitor, dislodge it from the wall brackets, and send it plummeting down to crush them. But it was McEnroe's way, and 9 times out of 10, it worked. She had been trained, like all diplomats, to analyse public speakers of the past. Churchill, Duranbe, frugal. But it was a particularly charismatic orator from the Third Reich that really took her in, and she had adopted his brand of shouty flailing. It worked in the 1930s, but times have moved on a bit since. Something so small had no right to be frightening. Mac was barely 5 feet tall, impishly built and frail. She billowed on the spot like a dandelion in an updraft. Her blonde hair bounced merrily. Her silver uniform twinkled in the light. The metallic pantsuits were meant to reflect the sun's rays, but they made the wearer look more like a Christmas tree decoration than seasoned fighters. She was nobody's idea of intimidation, and yet there she stood, in the middle of a violent tirade that threatened everything from space battles to nuclear winter, and Frank just about believed her. Castellana smiled away and bit her tongue. Of course, there would be no nuclear winter. That was against protocol. Earth Core had been quite clear about that. They might have spent decades perfecting the ionized magma missiles, but Commander Chudley was emphatic. This is a mission of peaceful exploration and galactic goodwill. The ship would use tact and not force to work its way out of situations. He'd said that peace and love are a hard message to preach when you have molten missiles strapped to your nether regions, and thus instructed Frank to use them sparingly, if at all. This was all well and good for McEnroe, who had a diploma in tact. While she'd been learning the subtle art of negotiation and fancy talk, Frank had been up to his neck in simulated entrails. Proper warfare. This vocal toing and froing was a completely alien concept, one he watched with passive detachment. To his left, the beady eye of space peered in, equally bored, equally glazed. It agreed with him. Disputes should play out in the court of war, and not a 30-foot TV screen nailed up in conference room 3. We can't ferry contraband across the galaxy for you, Castellana, no matter what havoc you threaten to wreak on that poor planet down below us. It was deemed contraband for a reason, and we were appointed protectors of peace because we follow the rules. We look for alternate energy resources and help civilizations in trouble. We do not negotiate with terrorists. Help me, or I will fry Balzoon 4. We won't negotiate. Castellana changed tact. The brown eyes rolled in her skull to gaze at Franklin. He sank deeper beneath the table. Don't do this, Casti. Don't pick away at me. I am not a terrorist, she purred. I am a businesswoman. Misunderstood. Frank can attest to my good nature. Can't you, Frank? We go way back. He knows me of old. Prince Valdoon's coronation, he muttered, goose pimples in bloom. Back of Clerk Room 3, he shot her a glare. Those days are over. I should never have trusted you. I wouldn't have if I had the faintest idea what you'd become. She was so gentle back in the day, before she dropped out of the academy, before she turned her back on Earth Core teaching, on decency, on Frank, before she gained access to world-melting lasers. In truth, the lasers were where the rot really set in. Up until that point, their relationship was salvageable if she shaky. I won't defend you, Castellana. You reap what you sow, and you chose this life. Don't ask me to get you out of a pickle now. I didn't abandon my morals, Franklin. I just don't happen to agree with yours. Some Earth Corps graduates go on to climb the company ladder. She flicked her wrist. Some strike out on their own. I happen to go freelance. I have my own compass to lead me now, and a million hungry mouths to feed. Her face sagged. After all, I don't steal because I want to. I steal to pay for my children. Will none of you think of the children? I have 100 wailing babes on board, and they need Mama Cos to feed them. At the end of the table, Misha gave a whimper. Frank's heart crumpled, his insides origami. He looked away. He couldn't maintain eye contact anymore, shielding his face with a hand. Beside him, Dr. Nash did the same. This distress, such pained wincing, was not unusual for the ship's doctor. Old Abraham Nash looked perpetually uncomfortable and ill at ease in his own skin. A grizzled man, attractive were it not for the slabs of grey beef that hung from his cheeks and the salami rings that sat under each eye. He was a gent whose entire facade could have been fashioned from deli meat and arranged by a bored diner on their plate. A man that sickly had no right to make others well. He hadn't always been this way. Frank had lost many a playground belle to Abraham Nash back in the day. Then puberty hit and he suddenly looked 45. Frank shuddered. It could happen to any of us. Still, Nash's insight would be invaluable later, when this farce of a negotiation came to an end, so he could put up with the man's fidgeting and elbow digs for now. His second-in-command did not shirk away or crumple. You can't crumple stone. Mac was thinking about the children, yes, but how to puree each and one of them into sausage meat. It was your choice to take on child soldiers, Castellana. No one forced you to. When you burnt through towns and villages, no one asked you to take on every wailing sprog you came across as well. That was your decision. You want a workforce that'll ask no questions when you can easily indoctrinate? Well, now you pay the price. Kids are a handful. Oopsie. They need food. I need an income. Then smuggle the contraband yourself and leave Balzoon alone. We won't help. They will pull me over, Mac. I'm wanted in 3 nebulas. The authorities would never pull over an Earth Corps cruiser. Besides, I've had the cargo on board longer than I can bear. It's done things. It's devoured my crew. I refuse to take it a step further, which is why you will take it for me. Either you humour my friendly request, or the space turd down there gets it. You have 12 hours to consider my proposition. Frank fiddled with his watch, set a timer for 12 hours just in case it came to that. Castellana did not make idle threats, and in less than a day the planet outside would have a solar beam pointed straight for its core. So through the window, the planet in question looked oddly familiar. Bands of sea, crisp fields, a pea wrapped in ribbons of blue, all the hallmarks of home, except it wasn't. It was Balzoon 4, and just as well, because there was also a great hulking pestilence moon poised above it, ready to strike. A parasite on the black canvas of space, the pestilence moon resembled a bulbous tick. Captain's quarters on the top, cased in 2 dome eyes, crew quarters in the abdomen, and at the bottom, 2 spindly mandibles, a laser cradled between them, ready to aim at Balzoon and scorch the life right out of it. The mechanical mandibles twitched. The laser wiggled. Stop doing that, snapped Mac. That's your last warning. Costy's hands crept away from the control panel, and she folded them curtly on her lap. Yes, Castellana, Frank leapt in. Don't move an inch or we'll blast you to kingdom come. Her full lips flicked into a smile. Frank's paper heart fluttered, and he slumped lower in his chair. But the shuttlecock is on a peaceful mission, Cornelius. Killing a murderer is not murder, Mac tried. Don't use your ingenuity, McEnroe. You know the rules, and I don't think Commander Chedley would agree with it. Shoot me then. Kill my children. You'll be court-martialed in a heartbeat. You have no choice but to meet my demands. We'll see about that. Her face vanished. The screen went blank. Frank blinked a couple of times, the electrical cord still heavy in his hand. When did he pull that out? His cohorts blinked across the table at him, all but silent. All but Misha, the comms officer, who was still tapping away frantically in her computer tab, her fingers flying over the screen with a thunderous speed. Come in, Balzoon, she muttered. Come in, anybody. They must have some stellar protection, he said. An atmospheric exoskeleton or a city-wide force field, right? I mean, it's the 23rd century. You don't leave your front door wide open, and you certainly don't leave your planet unguarded. Matt gave a slow nod. That would be ideal. Keep it between Castellana and Balzoon. We don't have to negotiate with terrorists, and we won't have to blast one out of the sky either. If they fight off themselves, we can stay out of it completely passive. Completely weak. Misha glanced up. Fixed? He asked. No, she wailed. No, I've searched all incoming and outgoing transmissions in a light-year radius, and none originate from Balzoon. They don't seem to have a radio frequency. They don't seem to have satellites. There's no way to warn them. Oh, he said. They've a vengeful Castellano in orbit. That's something they really need to know about. They need time to arm the barriers. I doubt they have barriers, snapped Nash. I've read the case files and they're awfully backward sorts. Think about it. If they do have an atmospheric exoskeleton, why is it not up already? And why have they not tried to make contact with either one of the great ships in orbit? I mean, unless, as I imagine, they are completely oblivious to all of this. Castellano may have silenced their comms, said Misha. Wouldn't put it past her, Mac agreed. How about, Nash tried, we head down there in person and talk to the city mayor. If they have some protection in place, fine and good. If not, we still have time to send for backup and broadcast his ship, attempt a stealthy takeover from the inside. Like a virus, cooed Mac. Yes, like a peace-waging immunodeficiency syndrome. Balzoon can't defend itself. They haven't moved out of the Dark Ages. I imagine the locals will just go up with us and pray for a sky demon or some such nonsense. And if a stealthy takeover isn't possible either, said Frank, we return to the cock and blow the bitch sky high, having exhausted all other avenues. We can't let her burn that city down. Chudley would agree. I could have another go at talking, Mac attempted. You could talk jumpers down from buildings and paedophiles away from a play park, Nash said. But your powers of persuasion hit a brick wall when it comes to coaxing Frank's ex-girlfriend away from her laser. Frank interjected. He had to. We never dated. Hush, Nash flapped. Well, it's important they know. How can my officers make an informed decision without all the facts? They continued to postulate for a good 10 minutes. Frank's eyes flipped between them like a wild tennis spectator. He gave the illusion of understanding, when really none of their words filtered through. He was too busy trying to muster an inspirational quote, so he just stared them on, reassert his dominance. Couldn't have the ship's doctor forming all the good plans now, could he? What if we take too long on the planet? Mac asked. What if Castellano grows tired of waiting for our reply and fires a laser anyway, before the 12-hour mark? Nash shrugged. We're damned if we do, damned if we don't. Frank beamed. The perfect segue. He climbed to his feet, and in the limited light of the conference room, made an imposing silhouette against the dark night sky. He puffed out his chest. As the famous matriarch of that long-gone banana republic once said, it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. He paused, made individual eye contact with everyone in the room, made them all feel special. He should have been the paid diplomat with this charisma, he really should. That's what gets results. The officer stared, speechless, swept away, words stolen in a fit of awe. Their bickering had trailed off into somber contemplation, as each remembered why they joined Earthcore in the first place. Not for actions and deeds, but to perpetrate a way of life, a moralistic sense of right, and... Did you just quote Bananarama at us? Mac frowned. Did you? I'm not 100% sure of the quote's origins, he scowled, scratching his head. But if you listen to 20th century pop music, that says more about you than it does me. He had never listened to anything pre-2025, and he was not a smelly retrohead like some. Well, come on then, said the diplomat, her hands already on the doorknob. Let's get a move on. She paused, caught Nash's eye. Robert De Niro's waiting. There was a hushed giggle, and they escaped into the corridor. Frank mooched along after, towards the elevator. Given the Cox network of identical winding white corridors, tributaries, and hidey holes, after 3 weeks, Frank still got lost. And as such, most important meetings were held in conference room 3, because they were right between the canteen and the lifts, and even he could manage that. They piled into the sterile white chamber. We have to save them down there, Frank, said Abe, or it'll be a cruel, cruel summer. There we are, Mac, he sniped. Your joke's dead now, Nash joined in. And no one knows the other Bananarama song, so you'll have to drop it. Going down, the lift chimed. Mindy Bunny. There was a lurch and gravity fell away beneath. Just bloody Balzoon. Might have known that'd be what she holds to ransom, he grumbled as they billowed in the momentary weightlessness, the one planet backwards enough to let it happen. I thought everywhere had an atmospheric exoskeleton, a laser shield, something that means they aren't wide open to attack. Phone the commission, Misha. Report them. It's galactic policy now. Protect and serve yourselves. The lift gave a shudder and came to a bone-jerking stop. They marched out on mostly uncrushed calves. Yes, Misha tutted, but the Commission don't like to hurry anyone along today, and everywhere has the right to evolve at their own pace. If you rush in, that could lead to confusion, theological debates, stellar warfare. From the lackluster case file, I'd say Balzoon haven't even discovered space travel yet, so the Galactic Commission is staying out of it. His mood grew blacker. The magma missiles looked more and more likely with each step. I wish Castellana would leave them to develop. Yes, well, she's discovered the flaw in that policy, hasn't she? Misha eyed him up and down. She always did like to take advantage of witless, innocent things. I wish the Galactic Commission would keep their nose out entirely, he continued, glanced at his reflection in the windows. The pitch-black eye of space peered in, always watching, like the Commission, like Earth Core head office, an ever-present eye trained on their star pupil, waiting for him to fail. Matt came to a stop in front of them, before a luminous vending machine. Despite budget cuts, Frank had insisted that there be access to snacks and sugar boosts on every floor, and now, as he stared at row after row of chocolate, calling him from beyond the glass, he was very pleased with that decision. Mac tapped her pinky ring against the touchscreen. The glass glowed green as requisite funds were withdrawn from her Earth Core balance, and the glass disappeared. She grabbed a nougat bar from the top shelf and lobbed it at him before breaking into a run. Stop scowling, Frank. We can't deal with a hostage situation and a hangry captain all at once. Get that down, yeah. He resented her tone. He resented the way Misha and Nash giggled. He resented the way she knew his moods so well. After 7 years together at the academy, it was to be expected. He swallowed the bar in a gluttonous choke and followed them through to engineering. They stopped in their tracks. The engineering room was the same as it ever was, a mess of wires and dusty cubes, a desk and a computer terminal at the front, where head engineer Brummy sat, a small hatch of interplanetary slide and rope ladder carved into the floor just behind. The nuclear reactor was sectioned off to the left. She toiled away in silence, a reassuring green glow from beyond the window. This mighty kingdom was ruled by head engineer Brummy, who quickly wrapped up his sopping bacon butty and rammed it behind a control panel, gave Frank a worried smile. The panel was probably not the sort of machinery to benefit from a ketchup-soaked bread roll mashed into its workings, but Frank chose to keep quiet. He'd picked the roly-poly mustachioed man for his merry good humour and happy-go-lucky attitude. Regular snacking seemed part of the deal. Planetary slides unfurled, sir. You should be able to zip straight down. He wiped sauce from his jet-black face fuzz, happy-go-lucky attitude, and a godlike ability to preempt Frank. Good work, engineer. Don't know what you hope to achieve, Nash muttered on. The two back would have a meaningful defense system. Ah, is Castellana holding another planet to ransom, is she? Nash nodded. How do you know any of this? Frank snapped. You weren't in negotiations, Brummy. Ah, your ex-girlfriend has quite a reputation for this sort of stunt. Do you not read the papers? She's not my ex. Frank broke from the group and snatched his chatterbox from the desk. Streamlined communication to the ship. Not that we should need it. In-out job. Without breaking stride or making eye contact with any of the engineering staff, he marched through the graveyard of broken appliances towards the hatch in the floor, hauled it up to reveal the yawning hole. A great hollow tube, a 70-mile-long inflatable that went all the way from the shuttlecock through clouds and slipstreams to dry land below. It looked like a regular blow-up slide. He sat down, let his legs dangle into oblivion beneath. Starshine lapped at his socks. Small fingers of light, each eager to yank him by the pant cuffs down to Balzoon. It looked like an ordinary blow-up slide, but that was nanoparticles for you. On the surface, they could form whatever veneer you like, but underneath the bonnet, billions of minute godlike particles rubbed shoulders, stronger than a saint's resolve and almost twice as firm on Frank's pecs, built to protect him from the sun's radiation and the burn-up of atmospheric entry. As captain, it was his right and privilege to go first. Yes, but we have to exhaust every possible diplomatic avenue before we fire a single shot. He slid off. Nash's shrug was the last thing he saw before the snarl snatched him down, another victim of the insatiable cosmos. And then tune in next time for Chapter 2, or rather Chapter 1, Section 2, because in actual fact 7 pages lasted a lot longer than I thought it would, even though I was talking quite quickly, because the font's small, so it's a lot of words in there.